Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Every Christmas we hear the wonderful prologue from John's Gospel, in which he unfolds the great mystery of the Incarnation. The words are beautiful, the message is profound, but sometimes it can be a little hard to take it all in. So we found another way of unfolding the mystery. God looked around and saw the world which he had made a long time ago, and what he saw upset him. In one place, preachers were talking about peace. Priests were talking about peace. Prophets were talking about peace. Politicians were talking about peace. So much talking, but there was no peace. There was only talking to hide the noises of war. God sighed a heavy sigh. In another place, people were building banks and storehouses, building monuments to their own greed, building meat mountains. So much building, while the poor became poorer and the scales of justice were biased to the rich. God sighed a heavy sigh. In another place, people were doing their own thing about loving, doing their own thing about trusting, doing their own thing about healing. So much doing their own thing, but the truth was that nothing was being done, for all were divided, suspicious, and lonely. God, you guessed it, sighed a heavy sigh. In another place, people were worshipping what their hands had made, worshipping what their money had bought, worshipping what their fantasies had imagined. So much worshipping, but no faith, and no hope, and no God. God sighed a heavy sigh. And then he stopped sighing and got angry. He said,
I'm fed up. There's only one answer to this mess. I'm going to destroy the world.
And then God thought for a minute, and he began to cry. And through the tears, he said,
How can I kill those who were born out of my love? I'm God, not a man. I will not destroy. I will save the world. I will let the world know that I love it.
So God got to thinking.
How can I tell my people that I love them?
God's first thought was telepathy.
I'll just think about it. I'll sit down and think about it. And if they read my thoughts, they'll know who I feel.
So God sat down and thought, but people had other things on their minds.
So much for telepathy.
God's second thought was sign language.
I'll make some signs to show that I love them. Then they'll understand, and things will turn out better.
So God made some signs, like a rainbow.
Somewhere over the rainbow.
But nobody understood. Then he made another sign by opening the Red Sea to let his people escape from slavery.
If you go down to the sea today, you're sure of a big surprise.
And the people were impressed, but nobody really understood. Then he made another sign. He gave them food in the desert.
Food, glorious food, cold and manna for breakfast.
And everybody ate, but nobody really understood. Nobody understood any of God's signs.
So much for sign language.
God's third thought was telegrams. For these he needed messengers whom he called prophets. And they each received telegrams, some with few words, some with many words. These were read to the people. Words, 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 words. But for all the words, nobody understood. Or if they did, they didn't let on.
So much for telegrams.
Then God thought about using the telephone. But when he discovered the cost of long-distance calls, he decided not to bother. God sighed a heavy sigh. Then God had a brainwave.
I'll send. I'll send. I'll go there myself. But how?
So God called a meeting of his three selves, the Creator, the Word, and the Spirit.
I move, the word goes.
Said the Creator.
I second that.
Said the Spirit.
Wait a minute.
Said the Word. But there was no minute, for there was no time. So the Word became flesh, tiny and frail flesh, nappy wet and gurning flesh, bone of our bone, flesh of our flesh, the Son of Joseph and Mary.